The court said, and the prosecution can call its next.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government calls Patrick Chin, Your Honor.
The law clerk said, please raise your right hand and bring the mic close to you.
Witness sworn.
The law clerk said, please be seated and bring the mic close to your mouth.
The court said, sir, if you would state your name and spell it, and make sure that you speak up.
The witness said, my name is Patrick Chin. Last name is Sechin.
The court said, and your first name?
The witness said, oh, I'm sorry. Patrick. Patrick.
The court said, so I need you to bring the microphone closer and I need you to speak louder.
The witness said, okay.
The court said, you may inquire.
Mr. Ferguson said, thank you, Your Honor.
Patrick Chin, called as a witness by the government, having been duly sworn, testified as follows. Direct examination. By Mr. Ferguson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chin.
Good afternoon.
What state do you live in?
I live in Texas.
What do you do for work?
I work on semiconductor material.
What kind of work do you do with semiconductor material?
We make specialized semiconductor research for various customers.
Mr. Chin, do you know who Miles Guo is?
Yes, I do.
How do you know who he is?
I ran into one of his YouTube videos, I think back in 2017.
Were you ever a follower of Miles Guo?
Yes, I was.
Did you ever invest in things Miles Guo promoted?
Yes, I did.
Are you still a follower of Miles Guo today?
I am not.
We'll come back to that, Mr. Chin. Mr. Chin, where were you born?
I was born in Taiwan.
And for how long did you live in Taiwan?
24 years, between 1964 to 1988.
And why was your family in Taiwan when you were growing up?
Both my parents' families originally were in mainland China. And they moved to Taiwan after the Communist Revolution.
What was the Communist Revolution, Mr. Chin?
I think after the Second World War, there was a civil war between Communist Party, Chinese Communist Party and the ruling government. And eventually the Communist Party pushed the previous Republic of China government to Taiwan.
Mr. Chin, why did your parents' families leave mainland China at the time of the rise of the Communist Party, or the CCP?
Yes. During the revolution, on my father's side. My grandfather and several uncles were brutally murdered during the communist rise-up. So my father was able to escape and eventually move to Taiwan. And on my mother's side, that's a different part of China. They were also farmers, landowners, and teachers. So they were also terrorized by the communist uprising, so they also moved to Taiwan.
Mr. Chin, are you yourself pro or anti-CCP?
I am anti-CCP.
Why are you anti-CCP?
First of all, based on my parents' family's experience and also growing up in Taiwan in the 60s and 70s. The whole climate is strongly anti-CCP.
Now where did you move to after growing up in Taiwan, Mr. Chin?
I moved to California to attend grad school in 1988.
The court said, where did you go?
The witness said, school?
The court said yes.
The witness said, University of California, San Diego.
What were you studying at UC San Diego, Mr. Chin?
It's electrical engineering department.
And what, if any, degree did you receive from UC San Diego?
I completed my PhD degree.
Mr. Chin, since coming to the United States in your early 20s, have you lived in this country since then?
I've been living and working in the US from 1988 till 2008.
And in 2008, where did you go then?
I took a job opportunity in Taiwan and moved to Taiwan.
And how long did you stay in Taiwan then?
I spent 10 years there.
And after those 10 years, where did you move next, Mr. Chin?
I took another job opportunity in 2018, and relocated back to the US, in Texas.
And have you been here since?
Yes.
Mr. Chin, you mentioned this earlier, but remind us, when did you first learn about Milesqua?
I ran into one of the YouTube videos. And he discussed an incident of his interview being cut off by Voice of America.
You said Voice of America. For the jury, what is Voice of America, Mr. Chin?
My understanding is the Voice of America is a broadcast or media company. Even growing up in Taiwan, we heard Voice of America's broadcast in both English and Chinese. I learned some English listening to Voice of America.
And you said the video you watched where you learned about Milesqua related to Voice of America. Is that right?
Correct.
And what did Milesqua say in that video about what had happened with Voice of America?
Apparently he had an interview with Voice of America, but that interview was cut short on air abruptly. So he claims, in his later video, that it's because Voice of America was pressured, by the CCP. So he cannot continue his interview.
And I apologize if you said this already, Mr. Chin. But approximately what year was it that you watched this video?
It's 2017 or 2018, thereabouts.
And what effect, if any, did watching this video and hearing Milesqua's claim have on you?
To have a live interview cut short like that I think it's a very significant event. And so that seemed to add some credibility to his claim that Voice of America may have been influenced.
After watching that initial video, Mr. Chin, how often, if at all, did you start watching Milesqua's videos?
I started following his YouTube video posts, just tried to listen more and more what he has to say. And also later followed his Twitter account.
Did you read G News?
G News was later platform he formed, I think.
And did you read G News ever?
I have.
Mr. Chin, did there come a time when you began volunteering as a Milesqua supporter?
Yeah. There are many followers of his videos, and I think it's at the beginning of the COVID. Because it was really chaotic all over the world, and many followers, he talked about COVID a lot too. And many followers felt that the information coming out of China and going into China are not transparent. So many of us, the followers, basically volunteered that, yes, we can do some translation of the news from the credible US sources outside of China and send those information back into China.
And Mr. Chin, what kind of volunteer work did you yourself do?
Just translate news articles and the information from, say, Johns Hopkins Hospital. Related COVID information.
And Mr. Chin, I'll just ask you, just for everyone's benefit, if you could raise your voice, if you can.
Yes.
Thank you. So Mr. Chin, when you were doing this volunteer translation work, who, if anyone, were you working with?
I have worked with several loosely organized small groups, but eventually the bigger group I spend most of time with is a person named David.
What was David's last name?
At that time we didn't know, but later we learned that his last name was Dai, D-A-I.
Where was David located?
He apparently was located in UK.
What was David's role in this group?
He is presumed the leader of this group.
And the group you were working with, did it have a name?
There was a name roughly translate to Fighting Hawk or Fighting Eagle.
Why was it called Fighting Hawk or Fighting Eagle?
I assume because Milesqua always have an eagle as his logo on his t-shirt or cap.
Was this group, Mr. Chin, a farm?
In the beginning, it was not.
Were you ever a farm member yourself?
No, I was not.
Now, Mr. Chin, you testified you began following Milesqua on social media and you watched his videos. Right?
Correct.
What was your impression, if any, of Milesqua's wealth?
He portrayed himself as a very wealthy person.
And why did you have that impression?
Just by all the setup, his luxury apartment, yacht, and the cars, so on, so forth.
What sorts of things, if any, would he say about his wealth?
He claimed that he made his wealth in China doing either construction or land development and made his money.
And you mentioned his apartment. What, if anything, did he say about how much his apartment cost?
He has mentioned the purchasing process of that apartment in New York. I recall a number like $80 million.
You also mentioned his yacht. What, if anything, did he say about the quality of his yacht?
His yacht was shown in his video constantly. It's a very big yacht. And he has been bragging about the build, the interior, the exterior of that yacht constantly.
When you would watch him in his broadcasts, what sorts of clothes would he be wearing, typically?
He usually wears very nicely tailored suit, and sometimes he would be doing exercising, but, yeah. He usually wears nice suits.
And what, if anything, did Gov't say about his clothing?
He would also brag that his suits were made by famous tailor. I don't recall the name.
Mr. Chin, at the time you were following Miles Gov't and watching these videos, did you believe he was very wealthy?
At the time, yes, I did.
Mr. Chin, are you familiar with the rule of law organizations?
Yes.
What were the rule of law organizations?
At a certain time, Miles.
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Mr. Chin, what were the rule of law organizations? You can answer that question.
At certain time, Miles declared the establishment of Rule of Law Foundation. His claim was that he would be using this money to help the pro-democracy group or people from China, or in China.
What, if anything, did Gov't say about donating his own money to Rule of Law Foundation?
I recall he mentioned that his family will donate a large sum of money to this foundation.
Do you recall how much?
I recall a number like 100 million.
Now, Mr. Chin, you said you had the impression he was very wealthy at this time, right?
Yes.
At that time, did you believe Gov't could donate $100 million to the Rule of Law Foundation?
At the time, based on his claims, I did believe that.
Did you donate to the Rule of Law Foundation, Mr. Chin?
This foundation, over time I made several small donations.
And about how much in total did you donate to the Rule of Law Foundation?
Several $100, $200 some.
Now, in addition to those donations, Mr. Chin, did there come a time when you invested in certain opportunities promoted by Miles Gov't?
Yes. Later, there were two claimed investment opportunities I did donate.
And approximately when did you donate?
When? Early 2020.
And do you recall around what month?
It should be April or May.
Now, Mr. Chin, what opportunities did you invest in?
These are two. He claims that he will form a platform, social platform, media platform to further broadcast news to, that is uninfluenced by outside power, to send those news to China.
What was the name of that platform?
It's GTV.
And did you try to invest in GTV?
At the time he claimed that GTV is for large investors only. More than 100,000-ish as a minimum. So for small investors, he created different route to invest.
And Mr. Chin, how much did you invest in GTV?
That's $10,000.
And you said that there was a $100,000 limit, is that right?
Yes, he claimed that those are for invited special investors.
So where did you send your $10,000 investment in GTV?
That $10,000, together with other followers, or investors, was sent to an entity called Voice of Gov't. Voice of Gov't Media or Voice of Gov't. It's a bank account in Arizona.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, could we please show the witness what's marked for identification as Government Exhibit VC11? Mr. Chin, is this the bank information where you sent your money?
Correct.
Mr. Ferguson said, Government offers Government Exhibit VC11.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit VC11 received in evidence.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, could we please publish?
By Mr. Ferguson.
All right. Now, Mr. Chin, you said this is the bank account where you sent your $10,000 investment in GTV. Is that right?
Correct.
Why did you send your GTV investment to Voice of Gov't?
It was well, we were told that small investors cannot invest directly to GTV. We need to pool our money together through the VOG, Voice of Gov't account.
And who told you to pool money and send it to Voice of Gov't?
From Miles Gov't himself on his videos and also from a lady named Sarah Way.
Who is Sarah Way?
She is one of the early avid supporters of Miles Gov't.
And what connection, if any, did she have to Voice of Gov't Media?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection.
The court said, if you know, you may answer.
I received this instruction from Sarah's email.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, if we could show just the witness what's marked as Government Exhibit VC9. Mr. Chin, is this another document you received from Sarah Way?
Correct.
Mr. Ferguson said, the government offers Government Exhibit VC9.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, it is admitted.
Government's Exhibit VC9 received in evidence.
Mr. Chin, could you please read what's stated at the top of this document?
No, all men buy these.
Oh, I'm sorry. The bold text at the very top.
Okay. Limited Purpose Agency Agreement.
And what was your understanding of what this document was, Mr. Chin?
At the time, it is a contract of this investment.
Between you and who?
And VOG, Voice of Gov't, Sarah's account.
And did you sign this document?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever receive a countersigned copy of this document?
I have not.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, we can take that down. Thank you. Mr. Chin, what was your understanding of what was supposed to happen with the $10,000 you sent to VOG?
The understanding was this money will be pooled together to meet the threshold, 100,000. To be able to invest in GTV.
And why did you want to invest in GTV, Mr. Chin?
At the time, while busy working on translating documents. And it was claimed that GTV will become a new social platform, social media platform or media platform. To transfer information.
And what reasons did you want to invest with your own money into what you understood GTV would be? Mr. Chin?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection. Asked and answered.
The court said, you may answer.
It's being repeatedly claimed that this new social or media platform will also do well through advertisement to make profit.
What, if anything, did Miles Gov't say about the return on your investment in GTV, Mr. Chin?
He threw out very large numbers, many volumes of return.
And at the time when you invested in GTV, did you believe Miles Gov't?
At that time I did believe there's a chance of return.
What, if anything, did Miles Gov't say about the risk of the GTV investment?
The risk has been really downplayed, minimal.
And what, if anything, did he say about why that was?
Just that his claim that this will be one of the only media that is not affected by CCP, so it will be the voice of most Chinese people will be used.
And at the time did you believe Miles Gov't that there was not a lot of risk in this investment?
At the time I did believe that.
Mr. Chin, before 2020, had you participated in stock investments?
Stock, yes.
And in 2020 did you have a financial advisor?
I had a financial advisor to my retirement account, but not brokerage account.
Would you describe yourself as a sophisticated investor?
No.
Had you ever participated in a private placement?
No.
What, if anything, did Gov't say about who could participate in private placements?
Private placement. It appeared to be a selective group. You have to be invited. And you need to make a large sum of investment. There is a large minimum.
Was it your impression that normally unsophisticated investors could participate in something like a private placement?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, sustained.
What, if anything, did Miles Gov't say about who could typically participate in a private placement?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection. Asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Mr. Chin, what time limit, if any, was there on your participating in this private placement?
At the time we were told that this opportunity window was closing up soon, so people who wants to participate need to act quickly. Within that monthish time period, March, April, Mayish time.
Mr. Chin, had you ever invested in a hedge fund?
I have not.
In his broadcasts, what, if anything, did Miles Guo say about sending GTV investor funds to a hedge fund?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection. Which broadcasts?
Mr. Ferguson said, any broadcasts.
The court said you may answer.
He has never mentioned reinvesting to hedge fund.
If you had known that Miles Guo was sending GTV investor funds to a hedge fund, would you have invested in GTV?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection. Lack of foundation. We dealt with this yesterday, Your Honor.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Mr. Chin, if you had known that Miles Guo was sending GTV investor funds to a hedge fund, would you have invested in GTV?
Most likely, no, because I was pretty simple-minded that this money will be used to build the platform, not reinvest.
Now, Mr. Chin, what ended up happening to your money sent to VOG?
Because I did not receive any return reply or receipt from VOG. After asking them couple times through email, I had my suspicion. And also some other followers who will have left the group also alarmed me that this may be a scam. So I contacted my bank, which wired the money to Wells Fargo, and the bank investor contacted Wells Fargo. And within a couple weeks, Wells Fargo was able to intercept that wire and return that $10,000 to me.
So ultimately you received the $10,000 you sent back from the bank?
Yes.
Mr. Chin, about how soon after you had sent the money to VOG did you contact the bank about fraud?
Maybe 2 weeks-ish. No more than a month. 2 weeks. Yes.
Mr. Chin, was this $10,000 transfer to VOG your only Miles Guo-related investment?
Mr. Kamaraju said, objection to form.
The court said, overruled.
Did you invest in other Miles Guo opportunities, Mr. Chin?
Yes, there was another one called a G-Dollar.
How much did you invest in G-Dollar?
It's also $10,000.
And around what time did you invest in G-Dollar?
About the same day or the next day of these two investments were wired.
At that time, Mr. Chin, what did you understand G-Dollar to be?
At the time I heard some claims also by Miles that this money will be used to build a cryptocurrency or purchase precious metals as a foundation of the movement.
When you say precious metals, what sorts of things?
Gold. He mentioned that quite often.
Mr. Chin, where did you send your G-Dollar money?
This was sent to a Capital One bank account located in New York.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, could we please show marked exhibits to the witness, just the witness, government exhibits VC7 and VC8, please? Mr. Chin, what are these exhibits?
This is wiring instruction the followers get from a web link.
Mr. Ferguson said, government offers government exhibits VC7 and 8.
Mr. Kamaraju said, no objection.
The court said, they are admitted.
Government's exhibits VC7 and VC8 received in evidence.
Mr. Ferguson said, and could we publish, please, Ms. Loftus?
By Mr. Ferguson.
Now, Mr. Chin, you said these were wire instructions sent to followers on a web link, is that right?
Correct.
Mr. Ferguson said, Ms. Loftus, I want to focus you first on the one on the left, Mr. Chin. Mr. Ferguson said, could we blow that one up, Ms. Loftus? All right. Now, Mr. Chin, at the very top it says G-Dollar pre-order. Do you see that?
Yes.
What is the bank account name listed beneath that?
Bank account name. That's GTV Media Group.
And do you know, Mr. Chin, why G-Dollar money was sent to GTV?
At the time I don't think this was clearly defined because everything was promoted by, both entities were promoted by Miles himself. So it's all related to GTV.
Mr. Ferguson said, and you can zoom out, Ms. Loftus. And if we could zoom on the one on the right. All right. Now this one says mail the check. Who is the payee, Mr. Chin?
Payee will be GTV Media Group Incorporated.
All right. And then do you see the text about halfway or a little lower that says tip? How much G dollar will receive? Do you see that?
Yes.
And then there's a chart beneath that. Do you see the chart, Mr. Chin?
Yes, I do.
Can you please explain what's shown in the chart?
It appears that you buy more, you get more. You pay more than 100, you get 120.
Mr. Ferguson said, thank you, Ms. Loftus. We can take this down for now. Mr. Chin, at the time you sent your $10,000 for G dollars, what was happening in the news with respect to cryptocurrency at that time?
Mr. Kamraju said, objection to form.
The court said, if you'll step up.
Continued on next page. At the sidebar.
The court said, what was happening in the news?
Mr. Ferguson said, yes, Your Honor. It's relevant to the promotion of cryptocurrencies at the time. The witness is going to testify that at that time, cryptocurrency was booming in the news. It was sort of the hot new fad. He's not going to say those exact words. I'm sort of editorializing a little bit. I believe the only objection was to form, Your Honor, not relevance.
Mr. Kamraju said, because it is an improper question to ask the witness what was happening generally in the news about any topic, let alone cryptocurrency. If you're asking particular questions of this witness, maybe.
Mr. Ferguson said, I can ask him, what information were you reading about cryptocurrency?
Mr. Kamraju said, even that. I don't know what relevance the promotions of other cryptocurrencies has to this particular case.
Mr. Ferguson said, he's just going to say there was a lot of information about cryptocurrency and the coin was like, booming. It was part of why he invested.
Mr. Kamraju said, I'm still not sure.
The court said, you can ask him what motivated him to buy this investment.
Mr. Ferguson said, okay.
The court said, okay.
In open court.
The court said, sustained.
By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Chin, in addition to Miles's statements, what, if anything, motivated you to buy G dollars at that time?
Generally to still support this movement and also the claim of potential return.
Had you ever invested in a cryptocurrency before?
I have not.
What, if anything, did Gov't say about the risk of investing in G dollars?
Also very much downplayed, basically just referred to the success of other cryptocurrency. That this will not fail.
And Mr. Chin, what happened to the money you sent to GTV for G dollars?
Same as the other wire. I didn't receive any receipt. So when I contacted my bank, I reported both wiring, so they also contacted Capital One Bank. But Capital One Bank said the money has been deposited or withdrawn, so that money was not returned at that time.
Did you get any cryptocurrencies for that $10,000?
I didn't receive anything.
Did you get a receipt?
No.
Ultimately, Mr. Chin, did you get any refund of that money?
Couple years later, through Security Exchange Fair Fund. They eventually returned all the investors some of this money.
You said Securities and Exchange. What are you referring to there?
The SEC.
The SEC?
Yes.
The money that was returned to you through the SEC, did you get a 100% refund or less than 100%?
Everyone received 92%.
Did Miles's pay back the missing 8%?
No.
Mr. Chin, you've discussed reporting to your banks and trying to reverse your investments. What caused you to have doubts about your investments?
First of all, I didn't receive any even receipt, so that's the biggest alarm. And then meanwhile, there are more and more people who have left the team before I did. We also talk to each other. And they start to give me warning that this is probably becoming a scam.
What effect did that have on you?
I feel all the good intention, not myself, many people were abused. That we tried to support a pro-democracy movement or transparency of information to Chinese people. But we were scammed.
You said other people warned you. Can you please describe why you think other people's warnings played a role in your doubts?
Mr. Kamraju said, objection to form and hearsay.
Mr. Ferguson said, it's for its effect, Your Honor.
The court said you may answer.
My feeling right now is, it's like other cult, right? When you believe that. You believe the leader and you cannot ask questions, but then some people who, quote unquote, wake up were able to have that effect on me, yeah.
You used the phrase wake up. Why do you use that phrase, wake up?
That's how I feel because after I left the group, I feel very relieved.
Who was the ultimate leader of this group, Mr. Chin?
Miles Gui.
Mr. Chin, for people who were still in the group, what, if anything, did those people say about people who left the group?
Mr. Kamraju said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
The witness said, may I?
The court said, go ahead.
Okay. When, in the beginning, there were few people who left. And they were very quickly labeled as traitor or CCP spies. At the time it's very shocking, but it seems believable. But as more and more people left and more people were labeled as CCP spies, that became not very reasonable. Yeah. And it is almost against his original intent of a democracy movement. Pro-democracy movement, because people cannot have different voice in the team, in the group.
Mr. Chin, at the time when you were a believer, what did you think you were a part of?
I tried to focus myself just on the translation job, collecting news, medical information. And try to translate that, and I think on a small part. At the small part of a bigger movement of pro-democracy movement.
Looking back now, what do you think you were actually a part of?
Mr. Kamraju said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Right now I believe that was very elaborate scam.
Mr. Ferguson said, could I have a moment, Your Honor? No further questions.
The court said, cross-examination.
Mr. Kamraju said, yes. Thank you, Your Honor. Cross-examination.
By Mr. Kamraju.
Mr. Chin, since we've been having some problems with the mic, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yes.
So I'd like to start where you started with the prosecutors, I believe. You talked about your family moving to Taiwan, correct?
Yes.
And that was the result of atrocities committed as part of the Communist Revolution in China, correct?
Yes.
And I believe you said that was because there was infighting among the Communist Party, right?
It has been called a civil war.
Okay. A civil war. So a dispute, an internal conflict, right?
Within China, yeah.
And one set of members of the Communist Party did not want to release the other set from their group. Right?
Can you say that again?
Sure. Let me try it this way. Very difficult to leave the Chinese Communist Party, correct?
Mr. Ferguson said, objection, Your Honor.
The court said you may answer. Go ahead.
From what I've learned, it seems that way.
Okay. And you said that, and I apologize if I got this wrong, so please correct me. But you mentioned that there was a government that moved to Taiwan, correct?
The government before 1949 was Republic of China, and that government right now is in Taiwan.
Okay. So the government that existed in China before 1949 now exists in Taiwan.
Correct.
All right. So it's an alternate government to the Chinese Communist Party that runs mainland China. Correct?
That becomes the politics.
I'm just asking your understanding, sir.
It's current government ruling, controlling or ruling Taiwan.
Okay. But that government that resides in Taiwan believes it's the legitimate government of China. Right?
Mr. Ferguson said, "Objection, Your Honor. He can't testify to what that government believes."
The court said, "Sustained."
Okay. Let me ask, is that your understanding, sir?
No. Not right now. In the past, probably.
Okay. That's fine.
The court said, "Who is the leader of the enemy of the Communist Party in the 1940s? What was the name of the leader?"
The witness said, "That would be Chiang Kai-shek."
The court said, "And did he go to Taiwan?"
The witness said he went to Taiwan.
The court said, "Go ahead."
Mr. Kumraju said, "Thank you, Your Honor."
By Mr. Kumraju.
Now you mentioned, I believe, that you first came across Mr. Guo on YouTube, is that right?
Correct.
That was in 2017, correct?
Roughly, yes.
Okay. And the first thing you saw about Mr. Guo was about a Voice of America interview he had done. Right?
Not the interview itself. He mentioned discussing that interview.
Right. It was a video discussing the Voice of America interview, correct, just to be clear.
Correct.
And you said that he claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had cut off the interview, right?
He claimed that the Voice of America cut it off due to the influence of CCP.
Okay. And are you using the word claimed because you're skeptical of that?
I couldn't verify that, right?
Okay. Because you have no evidence one way or the other about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you have no way of knowing, correct?
No.
Not then and not now, right?
Right now there actually are more information out, but again, I cannot verify myself.
Right. So you have no idea if there is an effort by the Chinese Communist Party to silence Mr. Guo. Correct?
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered, Your Honor.
The court said, "Sustained."
Now I think you mentioned that, I'm not referring to the Mr. Guo interview. But previously, you had been able to see Voice of America in Taiwan, correct?
Not see, only listening to shortwave radio.
Okay. Was it difficult to access Voice of America in Taiwan?
Not in Taiwan.
Okay. How about mainland China?
Difficult.
Why is that?
I've heard that it's illegal to listen to outside broadcasts in mainland China.
And when you say outside broadcasts, does that apply to social media as well?
When I grew up, there was no social media. These are just words, just radio broadcasts.
Okay. So the censorship has been going on for a long time then, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that was one of the ideas behind apologies. That was one of the ideas behind GTV. According to your understanding, correct?
At the time that it was the claim, yes, and I believed that.
And that was based on the idea of breaking through something called the Great Firewall of China, correct?
I've heard that claim, yes.
What does the phrase, the Great Firewall of China, mean?
I have limited understanding in that part of the technology, but generally it's censorship.
Okay. Censorship by who?
By CCP.
Okay. And so GTV was intended to break through that?
That was the claim.
Okay. And that claim seemed reasonable to you?
At the time I believed that.
Okay. Did you have any idea how GTV was going to accomplish that goal?
No. That was never clearly explained.
Okay. So right now I'm not asking what was explained. I'm just asking whether you had any belief as to how that was going to happen.
No. I wouldn't know, no.
You've met with the prosecutors before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. On several occasions, right?
Remote meeting, yes.
Yeah. Whether remote or in person, you've met with them on a number of occasions, correct?
Correct.
And there were FBI agents there, right?
Correct.
And there was somebody taking notes, right?
In remote meeting, I couldn't tell.
How about the in-person meetings?
I did not see them taking notes.
Okay. So you didn't observe anybody taking notes. But isn't it true that you told the prosecutors that you thought that GTV could break through the Great Firewall of China using satellite technology?
No, I have not said that.
So you never mentioned Starlink to them?
No.
And so if there were notes reflecting that, those notes would be wrong, sir. Is that your testimony?
Satellite and Starlink, no.
Now when you were talking about the money that you sent to Ms. Wei, you referred to it as Voice of Gua or Voice of Gua Media, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Gua Media is a social media company, correct?
Gua Media claimed to want to do social media. Social media platform was never built. It's just a name. Gua Media. That's my understanding.
So it's your testimony that Gua Media never actually broadcast anything?
No. Gua.
Mr. Ferguson said, "Objection, Your Honor. That wasn't the testimony."
The court said, overruled. You may answer.
Gua Media never broadcast anything. All the broadcast by Miles or by Sarah. I'm not sure Gua Media label was put up there as Gua Media, but everyone know it came from the same person.
Well, the reason why I asked you is because you testified, I believe, that he claimed that Gua Media was a social media company, correct?
Gua Media is a social company? My recollection. He claimed that Gua Media will build a social platform, but that's that.
Okay. And that's the same claim you say that he made with respect to GTV, correct?
Those names have been used interchangeably by him and others, was not clearly defined what Gua Media. What GTV? It was not clearly strictly defined. That's my recollection.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. So when you invested money in 2020, in May of 2020, did you think you were investing in Gua Media?
At the time the money was sent to Voice of Gua account and supposedly this will be pulled together to meet the 100K threshold to be able to invest in however that's going to be Gua Media. Yes.
Continued on next page. By Mr. Kumraju.
Okay. So the $10,000 that you sent to Ms. Wei, you intended for that to be invested in Gua Media. That's your testimony?
That's what we were told, that this money will go where this money will go.
Okay. Now, we've talked about Ms. Wei for a little bit. You don't have a very high opinion of her. Correct?
She was an early strong supporter, seems to be, and later I stopped listening to her.
You don't think she's very bright, right?
That's all personal opinion.
The witness said, "Do I have to answer?"
The court said, yeah, you can answer whether you think she's bright or not.
I don't think she's highly educated.
In fact, you've told the prosecutors that she is incompetent, correct?
I don't think I told the prosecutors she's incompetent. She's not. I cannot recall if I used that word, but...
Okay. Let's put to the side whether you used that specific word. Did you express to them any word that suggested to them that you thought she was incompetent?
Any word. I don't think I can recall exactly.
Now, sir, during your testimony on direct you repeatedly referred to things that you believe Mr. Gua said. Correct?
Correct.
You have never spoken personally with Mr. Gua, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. So he didn't say those things to you, right?
Not to me personally.
So where did you hear them?
Where do I hear?
Where did you hear them?
Mostly Twitter and YouTube.
Like Twitter posts or what?
Twitter posts.
So like typed out Twitter posts.
Video, mostly video post.
Okay. Which videos?
He has post many videos.
Okay. Tell me the video where he downplayed the risk of the GTV investment.
Mr. Ferguson said, "Objection, Your Honor."
The court said, "Overruled. You may answer if you know."
I have them in my record. I cannot name the date right now. But there was a video he said that the money will grow quickly.
What did he say specifically, sir?
In one of the video that I can recall, he said the money has grown so much in the past few days. And once it's open up to more investor, this will grow tremendously, very large numbers.
Okay. In which video did he promise really high returns?
In his video, he would be promising hundreds or even more, higher number for the return.
Which video?
Again, the video that have translated for the team.
Okay. But the prosecutors didn't ask you about that specific video, right?
While the early email communication, I have forwarded a few links to the investigator.
Okay. But during your testimony in this courtroom, the prosecutor didn't show you any of those statements, right?
During this court, in this.
The court said, when the prosecutor was asking you questions, did he show you videos just now?
The witness said, "Show video, no video."
Now, you testified on direct that you believed Mr. Gua's statements about getting higher returns. Correct?
At the time, yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that during your very first meeting with the prosecutors, you told them that you thought that his predictions of returns were ridiculous?
He claimed that everyone will be able to own a yacht like that. That's obviously ridiculous. I didn't believe that.
Okay. So you didn't believe that everybody would be able to buy a yacht. You thought that was a ridiculous claim, right?
At the time that number was ridiculous even to me.
Right. The returns he was predicting in your mind were ridiculous, right?
Those large number were not reasonable.
Okay. And, in fact, you also told the prosecutors that you didn't have an anticipation of getting a return at all from your GTV investment. Right?
At the time my mindset is if there's some return, great, if there's no return, I donate it to a cause.
Right. Because ultimately, the goal of you sending the money to GTV was to support GTV's mission to break through the Great Firewall of China. Correct?
There was definitely some expectation of some return too.
But didn't you just testify that if you didn't get a return, okay, you donated to a cause?
Mr. Ferguson said, asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
Now, one of the reasons why it was important, GTV's mission was important to you personally, is because you still have family in China. Correct?
There are remote family, yeah.
Okay. Now, did you watch a video by Mr. Gua when he announced the GTV private placement?
Announced the private placement. There were many videos at the time. I don't know exactly which one is announcement. But at the time I watched many.
How about one on April 20th, 2020, did you watch that?
I cannot recall the date exactly.
Do you remember watching any video of his in April of 2020?
I don't memorize the date. I may have, but
Okay. So when did you first hear about the potential GTV investment?
It's also in that time frame he has been mentioning an investment opportunity.
When you say, in that time frame, are you talking about the April time frame?
April, even late March, as I recall, there were mentioning of the opportunity.
Okay. And he was mentioning those, you said, in videos posted online, right?
YouTube. Correct.
YouTube. Is it your testimony that you never saw him discuss a GTV private placement on a Gua media platform?
I do not know the exact distinction between these two. These two names or two entities were not clearly defined. It was separated in my mind.
Okay. Now, when you were evaluating the GTV investment that you were going to make, you thought it was a risky investment, correct?
At the time I thought, yes, it's risky.
And you were unsure about making the investment, correct?
I had my doubt too, yes.
You didn't contact Mr. Gov't and try to address those doubts with him, right?
I have not.
But you did contact somebody to address those doubts, right?
The email I send the money to, yes.
Well, didn't you speak about your concerns with the GTV investment with somebody who goes by the name Bird?
There's a lady with name called James Bird, not just Bird, James Bird.
Okay. Thank you. So you spoke with James Bird about your concerns prior to investing?
There were discussions.
I'm just trying to get clear, was that with James Bird, this discussion?
My understanding is that she also invested. And before the investment, there were discussion whether to make the investment or not.
Okay. Discussions between you and James Bird, right?
The court said, "Are you saying Jane Bird?"
The witness said, James.
The court said James.
The witness said, last name Bird, but it's a she.
The court said, "So is the last name James Bird?"
The witness said, that's her online name.
The court said, "I see."
The witness said, James Bird, the one word.
The court said, "Go ahead."
Mr. Kamraju said, thank you, Your Honor.
By Mr. Kamraju.
So I just want to be clear so the record is clear. When you're referring to discussions, you're talking about discussions between you and the person who goes by the name James Bird.
Correct.
And based on those discussions, you then proceeded with your investment, correct?
There are also discussions with a few more people, now I don't recall the name, but yes. There was at least one discussion with James Bird.
Okay. So you vetted your investment decision with James Bird and a few other people, right?
Mr. Ferguson said, objection. Mischaracterizing.
The court said, sustained.
Okay. You discussed your investment decision with James Bird and a few other people, correct?
There was, yes.
But none of those people were Miles Gov't, right?
No.
Mr. Kamraju said, may I have just one moment, Your Honor? I'll try to organize a little bit. Now, around the time that you were making your GTV investment, you also said that you were doing some translation work on behalf of the movement, correct?
Correct.
And so what were you translating exactly?
For example, at the time was COVID, and that a number of death or infection inside China. Outside China. I mean inside China looks from statistic point of view looks not reasonable. So one of the job I did was collect the trend of infection from several different country and make a comparison. And said that explain that for infectious disease. Statistically it unlikely to have a zero or very low flat infection number, right? Because most other countries have a certain trend. But the statistics people can see from China looks odd from mathematic point of view, a mathematical point of view.
So the material that you were translating was health information that you were trying to help people in China. Is that right?
Just to show that be careful what information they are receiving, to have a second opinion, I guess.
Okay. Because there's only one opinion allowed typically in China, correct?
China is controlled by CCP.
Right. And so it's the CCP's opinion that's allowed, right?
It's a specific for health information or?
Sure, let's stick with that.
There seems to be only one published data.
Okay. And you testified on direct that Mr. Gov't was also talking about COVID, correct?
He discussed COVID too, yeah.
And you translated some of his information about COVID, right?
Most of the information I translated is public information from the US. I collected. Some of his talks I translated to English may also contain his opinion on COVID.
Okay. So you translated. I think you used the word talks. So you translated talks that Mr. Gov't gave about COVID and about other things, right?
About other things. There are COVID and other things, correct.
Like what other things?
The same thing. The corruption in mainland China, how bad that was, things like that.
Okay. And you thought that was important to get that information to the people in China, right?
Just as again to perhaps open up more the information flow or news flow.
You testified on direct that you were no longer a follower, right?
Correct.
When did you stop being a follower?
Since I didn't receive any receipt on my investment.
Okay. So that was in summer of 2020.
Correct. Since I asked investigator to investigate.
I'm sorry, sir, are you finished with your answer?
Finished.
Since you stopped being a follower of Mr. Gov't, have you still tracked the information that he puts out?
I didn't track his information, no.
Have you been following what's been going on in Mr. Govt's life since you stopped being a follower?
No.
Okay. So you have no idea if he is still wealthy or not, right?
Mr. Ferguson said, objection.
The court said, overruled. You can answer.
On YouTube sometimes those videos pop up. But I have not actively tracked or follow or search any of his whereabout.
So you don't know if he still has a yacht, right?
Mr. Ferguson said, objection. Asked and answered.
Mr. Kamraju said, I know I've not asked that question before.
The court said, I know. You may answer, sir.
The question was?
You don't know if he still has a yacht.
I wouldn't know either way. I wasn't following his.
Okay. So I'm not going to go through each thing, I'll just sum it up. All the luxury items that you talked about seeing in the videos. Remember you testified about that with the prosecutor?
I did not follow, so.
Okay. So you have no idea if he still has any of those things, right?
There were videos that pop up with him in that apartment or on the yacht. But whether he still own or whatnot, I don't know any more than that.
You testified on direct, sir, that you thought that you woke up, I think was your word. Because you spoke to a couple of friends who told you it was a scam, is that right?
Basically, a few ex-followers who left the group before I did.
Were any of those ex-followers based in China, sir?
There was a friend who was a prior acquaintance. She was based in China, but she did travel. She was also following all this Gw's video. She also contacted me separately and warned me that this doesn't look right to her.
All right. And this friend lives in Beijing, is that right?
I said she travels around overseas as well. I don't know exactly.
One of the first claims that you said Mr. Gwa made was that VOA was pressured to take him off the air. Correct?
That's his claim.
And that happened in 2017, right?
I don't know the exact date, but I think that event happened in 2017.
Mr. Kamraju said, could we please have Exhibit DXSTIP-001, please? Can we go to paragraph 5? Can you read the first sentence, sir? Mr. Kamraju said, if you could maybe highlight that for him.
To carry out some of the objectives of Fox Hunt in 2017. The PRC government tasked a specially designated group of operatives, the group with discrediting and harassing individuals, including Mr. Gwa, by using interactive computer services and electronic communication systems.
Mr. Kamraju said, okay. And then can we highlight the sentence that says, the group's tactics aimed at Mr. Gwa? And go all the way through the end of that sentence. Can you read that sentence, please?
The group's tactics aimed at Mr. Gwa included using anonymized social media accounts operated by the group and by pressuring U.S. social media companies to remove Mr. Gwa and U.S.-based associates of Mr. Gwa from social media platforms.
Can you read the next sentence, please?
These efforts were part of the PRC government's broader effort to prevent, disrupt, and harass Mr. Gwa's use of social media and other online platforms to disseminate and discuss disfavored content.
Mr. Kamraju said, no further questions.
The court said redirect.
Mr. Ferguson said, yes, Your Honor.
Redirect examination. By Mr. Ferguson.
Mr. Chin, you were asked questions about the difference between Gov't and GTV, do you recall that?
Yes, I was asked.
Is the difference between those two things clear to you?
At the time it was not very clear, it just all directed by Miles Gwai.
And when you sent $10,000 to VOG, what did you understand would happen with that money?
My understanding based on the claim was that this money will be pooled together to meet 100,000 threshold to be able to invest in the Gov't.
Was it Gov't or GTV?
Mr. Kamraju said, "Objection, Your Honor." Asked and answered.
The court said, sustained.
And Mr. Chin, just a moment ago you were asked about things Miles Gwai said about being targeted by the CCP. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
What did Miles Gwai say about the return on your GTV investment?
Mr. Kamraju said, "Objection. Scope."
The court said, you may answer.
He claims again big numbers based on other existing social media or media companies' return.
And what about your $G investment? What did he say about the returns on that?
He claimed that first of all, this will absorb a large amount of money. And then based on implying that based on the other cryptocurrencies' success, this will also be successful.
At the time when you were a follower, did you believe what Miles Gwai was saying?
At the time I did.
And, in fact, Mr. Chin, did you make money or lose money on these investments?
I lost.
Did Miles Gwai pay back your losses?
He did not.
Are you still a follower of Miles Gwai today?
I'm not.
Why not?
I think he has scammed, abused, many people's good intention and our energy and the time. We tried to do something good, but we were cheated.
Mr. Ferguson said, no further questions.
The court said, recross.
Mr. Kamraju said, very briefly, Your Honor. Recross-examination.
By Mr. Kamraju.
You testified that Miles Gwai has not repaid your losses, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever asked him?
I have not.
Mr. Kamraju said, nothing further, Your Honor.
The court said, all righty, sir. You may step down. Thank you.
Witness excused.